Hi, Luis. Good evening.
Hi, Miss.
Let's wait 2 minutes, see if somebody else shows up. Then we start.
Okay.
Hey guys. So today we're going to be practicing question 1 of the speaking section. We did this yesterday. And well, what we're gonna do today is we're gonna practice. I think we already talked about the topics that we have in this question. And we also talked about the types of questions we have. Right? Remember we said there were 3 different question types. Agree and disagree, preference, and good idea. And the important thing is that you answer the question using the same verb we said, right? So if the question is, do you agree or disagree? You need to say, I strongly agree or I strongly disagree that online courses are more efficient. If it's a preference, you need to use the verb prefer. I totally prefer taking online courses. And if it's a good idea or bad idea, you need to say, I totally think that it's a good idea for students to have online classes. Right? So depending on what you have in the question, your introduction is going to be a little bit different. But aside from that, everything else is exactly the same, right? It doesn't matter what type of question you have, you still have to have one reason we said and one example at least. So do you guys have any questions before we start today's class? Okay, guys. So we're going to start by analyzing 2 sample responses. We're just going to see 2 and then we practice. Okay, but I just want to make sure that you guys have this in mind so that when you're practicing, you can maybe try to use these tips. So, Luis, please, could you read the question that I have on my screen?
Do you agree or disagree with the following sentence? We can learn a lot from making mistakes.
Very much. So it's an agree and disagree. That means that you have to say whether you agree that we can learn a lot from mistakes or not. And then you need to give a reason and one example. So I want you guys to hear this response, and I want you to tell me what you think about it. And then we'll be analyzing element by element what we have in this response. This is an example of a level 5 response. Of course, this is prepared, so you are gonna improvise. It's normal if you make mistakes, if you make pauses, if you don't speak perfectly. But what we're gonna analyze mostly is the content, not necessarily the delivery or the pauses or the fluency of this person. Okay, guys? So let's hear how this person answered this question, and then we'll analyze his response.
I totally agree that we can learn a lot from making mistakes. First of all, we always remember how our past mistakes made us feel, and since they usually make us feel really terrible, we try to avoid repeating them so we don't feel that way again. We also take deliberate action to avoid it. For instance, last year before my big science midterm, I made the mistake of playing video games all day long. As a result, of course, I failed the test and I felt miserable. But I learned from that it's very important to study and to prepare for tests. So the next year, during exam season, I buckled down, I studied, and I learned a lot.
Okay, guys. So what do you think of that response? Yesterday, we talked about the different ways in which they evaluate these responses. We talked about three different categories, right? One was the content, which is basically topic and development. The other one was delivery, the way that the person or the way that you guys speak and you deliver your response. And the other one was language use, right? Which was grammar and vocabulary. So I have the transcript here, and I want you guys to take a look at this. As you can see in this case, how many reasons and how many examples did he have? How many reasons, how many examples did he have in his response?
One example.
One reason and one example, right? The reason is what I'm underlining on red, and the example is what's at the end, green. Right, that's the example. So we just have one reason, one example, and it's a perfectly complete, perfectly well elaborated answer, right? There was nothing missing there. With only one reason and one example, he got a perfect score. So if you guys analyze the content, it has everything we talked about yesterday. We have a brief introduction in the beginning where he directly answers the question. The question was, do you agree or disagree that we can learn a lot from making mistakes? He says, I totally agree. He has the adverb. He has the correct verb. And then he has the correct clause from the question, right? So everything's perfect in the introduction. He is copying and pasting, right? The question was exactly like this. If you guys want, you can paraphrase it. You could say, I totally agree that mistakes teach us a lot of lessons, right? If you want, you can change the word, change the order, but it's not necessary. I don't recommend you do that because you have the entire response to show vocabulary. You don't need to do that in the introduction. That's going to be 7 seconds. Now, one thing that I wouldn't suggest that you guys do is that you use this word or this transition. I honestly wouldn't use it because when you say, first of all, most of the time that means that there should be another idea. So you need to say, first of all, in addition, first of all, second of all, first, second. So to be honest, I don't suggest that you use this. Go directly to the reason by using the word since, because, as, for, whatever you want, but don't have a transition. Okay, only have this type of connectors. So that's what I would change, maybe. I totally agree, although we can learn a lot from making mistakes, since we always remember how past mistakes made us feel. And since they usually make us feel really terrible, we try to avoid repeating them so we don't feel them way again. So it's a good reason. It's short, but it is explained. Maybe more than what I would do. To be honest, I don't think I would do it this long. But it's okay. I mean, it's complete. I want you guys to look at the vocabulary, right? They make us feel really terrible. I felt miserable. One quick way of expanding your vocabulary is by studying or memorizing a couple of synonyms to the most common adjectives. So instead of saying mistakes make us feel bad, he's saying terrible. Instead of repeating terrible, he's saying miserable, right? So it's great if you guys can use different adjectives instead of the most common ones. Instead of saying good, you can say positive or kind. Instead of saying important, then you could say it's essential, it's key, it's of paramount importance. So to be honest, study a couple of adjectives to the most common ones, and that's gonna make you expand your vocabulary big time. Now, another thing that you guys should see here is that he has a lot of transitions, right? For instance, nevertheless, as a result, thus. So those transitions also help you in terms of vocabulary. They help you structure a better response, and also they help you show that you have that advanced vocabulary. So use transitions when you guys speak. Try to get used to using these transitions by correcting yourselves. So every time that you're speaking and you say so, you need to make sure that you go back, you make a pause, and then you change the so for something else. Instead of saying so, you're going to say therefore. Every time that you say so, you need to force yourself to not say so and say therefore, even if you have to correct yourself or repeat it over and over again. Instead of saying but, you're always going to say however, however, however. So practice in that way so that you get used to using these transitions. Another thing is that the example is really closely related to the reason, right? If you guys look at it from the perspective, looking at the content, the reason is that we remember how our mistakes make us feel, and we don't repeat them not to feel that way again. And in his example, he is illustrating that with a specific idea. So he made a specific mistake. He forgot to study for his test. He made the mistake of playing video games. He's being very specific about what mistake he did, about when this mistake happened last year before my science midterm. Look at the details. And it's connected, right? Because he made a mistake. He made a mistake of playing video games. He failed the test because of that mistake, and he felt terrible. He felt miserable. So he remembers how this mistake made him feel. And because he remembers, then he has learned his lesson, and now he can change his attitude, right? So next year, he didn't repeat the mistake because he remembers how it made him feel. So he won't make that mistake again. Right? So the connection between the reason and the example is obvious, is clear, is there. And the example is detailed, right? This is a personal example, a personal experience in the past. It has good details, it has the context, the events, and the resolution of the exam. Right, guys? So, is that okay? Do you have any questions about this so far? No? Okay, guys, so let's hear another sample response. This time you're gonna see that it has a different structure, but it is just as valid as this one. I just want to give you guys two different examples, two different questions. Sorry. So, Erasmo, please, do you mind reading the question on my screen?
Do you think it's a good idea for children to help their parents with household chores as soon as they are old enough? Use details and examples in your response.
All right, thanks, Erasmo. Let's now hear this other sample response. It's another level 5 response.
I think it's a great idea for kids to do household chores as soon as they're old enough. First of all, this can teach children some really valuable skills that will come in handy later in life. For instance, I was responsible for cooking breakfast for my little brother every day before we went to school when we were both kids. As a result, when I went away to college as a teenager, I stayed really healthy because I could cook my own meals instead of always going out for fast food like my friends and classmates. Secondly, parents and children can do household chores together, and this gives them a chance to bond. You know, as they work on things like cleaning dishes or cooking food, they can chat, and the kids might open up about what's going on in their lives.
So that's a different type of response. In this case, how many reasons and examples did he have? He had two of each, right? He had two reasons and two examples. But the structure is exactly the same. He has an introduction where he answers using the same verb, I think. And then he is saying what he thinks, right? I think it's a great idea. I think it's a good idea for kids to do household chores as soon as they're old enough. So look at how he is summarizing the question, because if you think about it, the question was longer, right? It's a little bit too long. It says, do you think it's a good idea for children to help their parents with household chores as soon as they are old enough? That's too long, and you don't want to repeat everything. So he says, I think it's a great idea for kids to do household chores as soon as they're old enough. And to be honest, I wouldn't even say this, You could just say, I think it's a great idea for kids to do household chores. You don't necessarily have to say everything, right? You need to make it short, but as long as you have something like this, as long as you have part of the statement, then you're okay. And then he has transitions, first of all. Secondly, in this case, when you guys have two reasons, then yes, it's great if you use first of all to begin with whatever you want. Now, the problem is that you don't always know how many reasons you will have time for. So maybe you think that you have time for two, but maybe at the end of the day you run out of time and you can only fit one. So that's why it's better to avoid starting with this transition, because what happens if you run out of time and you stop here and you don't have enough time to add a second? Then it's gonna sound weird. So it's better to just say since, and then you can always add in addition, furthermore, moreover, besides here. Okay? He has two reasons. Obviously, they're gonna be shorter. So the reason number one is that this can teach children valuable skills. So instead of saying useful skills, he says valuable, right? More vocabulary related to adjectives. That will come in handy later in life. He has a specific example. So I was responsible for cooking breakfast for my little brother every day before we went to school. So look at the details, right? What household chore did he do? He cooked breakfast for every day. When? Every day for his little brother when they were both kids. As a result, look at this transition. When I went away to college as a teenager, I stayed really healthy because I could cook my own meals instead of always going out for fast food like my friends in class. So if you observe the connection between the reason and the example, they are there, right? It's pretty clear. The reason talks about how children learn these valuable skills that are useful later in life. And then he has an example of that. So he learned a valuable skill of cooking breakfast that will come in handy later in life, that has been useful for him when he was in college, right, as a teenager, because he was able to stay healthy because of that skill that he learned while doing these household chores. So the connection is clear. The tenses are great for grammar. Everything's good. And then he has a second reason. He says, secondly, parents and children can do household chores together, and this gives them a chance to bond. So it's another interesting reason, completely different from the first. And he has details as well. He has examples. He says, as they work on things like, this is an example, cleaning dishes, cooking food, they can chat and the kids might open up about what's going on in their lives. So even though it's obviously not going to be such a complete example as the first, it's still valid as an example because it has good details, right? So those are some comments I could make. I don't know what you guys think now, if you have any questions perhaps. Do you, or is everything okay?
Everything okay.
Okay, guys, great. Let's start practicing. We're going to be answering a couple of questions. You guys will be answering them. And as we go, I will give you some Okay, guys, so let's start with this question here. It says, some students choose to take courses in a variety of subject areas in order to get a broad education. Others choose to focus on a single subject area. Which approach to course selection do you think is better for students and why? Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, guys, so maybe we can start with Luis. You want to go first?
Yeah, well,
Okay, go ahead, please.
I prefer, I think it's better to students to choose one single subject area because you have more focus on one thing and you have more details, more carefully with these things, the subject. And mm, it's
Okay, great, well done. So I can see your point, I can see the idea that you have. Maybe you were just missing some expressions in order to express it better. So some comments I can give you. First of all, make sure that your introduction is always ready. It has to be ready to go because it's as easy as checking what the question is. Which approach to course selection do you think is better? So you're just gonna say, I think it's better, and then you continue by including something that you have in the statement, right? I think it's better to, you could say, I think it's better to, the verb, focus on a single subject area. I think it's better to take courses in a variety of areas, right? So always make sure that you look at the question, the one that has the question mark, and the verb that is there is the verb that you're gonna use. You can add an adverb. I totally think that it's better to focus on a single area. Now, when you that should be 7 to 8 seconds, right? And it's just practice, so don't worry about that. Now, maybe for your reason, what you could say, I'm gonna give you some ideas. You could say that by focusing on one area, you learn the content more in depth. More in depth means más profundamente, right? More in depth. Or maybe you could say that you gain more experience. To gain more experience. To gain more experience, to gain more expertise. Okay, guys? So you can say that you learn more, the content more in depth, or that you get more experience, more expertise. And I want you guys to start taking notes of this. I want you all to create a reason sheet. Quiero que creen un reason sheet donde van a ir anotando este tipo de razones, porque son razones que pueden usar en más de una pregunta. No solo en esta pregunta pueden usar estas razones, porque son expresiones muy útiles para otro tipo de preguntas también. Entonces pueden ya ir escribiendo algunas razones que consideran que se pueden usar en otras preguntas. Esta es una muy común. You can learn more things more in depth, or you can gain more experience or more expertise. De esa manera mantienen su razón corta, and you don't forget about the example, right? You could say, for example, right now I'm in university, and I have decided to only focus on areas related or subjects related to my career path, which is engineering. I'm only focusing on taking physics and math classes, and I feel that I am better able to learn the content as I can concentrate and dedicate my time to only what I only need, right? So don't forget your example where you give details, but it wasn't bad to be your first try. Thank you so much. Maybe those are some tips that I can give you. Things like the expressions, the introduction, and don't forget the example. Okay, Luis, is that okay?
Yes, miss.
All right, any questions so far? Let's go with another one then. We have some students prefer to work on class assignments by themselves. Others believe it is better to work in a group. Which do you prefer? Explain why. So now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so Erasmus, please. You may start speaking now.
Okay. I prefer to work on class assignment by myself. I believe it's better to work in a group because I can prepare me and learn more from the assignment. For example, when I was working in a math assignment, when we work in a group, they can do a lot of exercise. You can divide the work, but if you do for yourself, you can practice more and understand in a better way. That's the reason for me.
Okay, Erasmus, thank you so much. Good response. So what I would say is that maybe I was a little bit confused as to what your opinion was. Because initially you said that you prefer to work on assignments by yourself. But then you also talked about the benefits of working in groups. You said that you can divide the work. You also said that they can share, I think you said. So if you are going to go for one option, if you're going to say that it's better to work alone, then don't say anything about the benefits of the other option. Okay?
No, I just trying to say that in that example, if you divide the work, they do exercise for and you have less time to practice exercise because you divide the work. So
You
I
mean
mean,
that you only learn one part?
yes, only you only had one part of the assignment.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, but it wasn't so clear. Careful there.
Yeah.
So to be honest, maybe you could try looking for another easier reason to explain. So always go for simple ideas. Maybe some ideas you could use here would be if you are going for the option of working alone, you could say that you can concentrate more. Maybe working with other people is distracting for you, right? You can say I prefer or I totally prefer to work on my assignments by myself, since you can concentrate better when working alone. And then you give your example, right? Same thing as you did. For example, yesterday I was working in a math assignment and my professor asked us to work in groups. However, during the whole time that we were meeting to do the project, they were chatting and speaking about other topics, and I got really distracted that I couldn't really concentrate and do the work. I ended up doing that the whole day, let's say. Right? So it may be a simpler reason, maybe. Or concentration could be one. And maybe what you were saying is fine as well. By doing things on your own, you get to learn about everything, not just the part that you got right with the division of the work. But maybe try to explain it in a better way. That's the only thing I say. It wasn't bad though. Well done.
Okay.
Guys, you can write down those reasons as well, right? Concentrating more is very common. And yeah, dividing the work is also another good one. Let's see. Okay. A question here says, some people enjoy taking risks and trying new things. Others are not adventurous. They are cautious and prefer to avoid danger. Which behavior do you think is better? Explain why. You will now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So, Luis, please, you can start speaking now.
I strongly agree. The people enjoy to try new things since if you know new things and probably these things could enjoy and probably love these new things. For instance, in pandemic, I went with my friends to ride a bike and to know new places.
Okay. Okay. Riding a bike is a great detail. So yes, maybe the tip that I would give you is try to always be a little bit more specific. As for your introduction, always answer using the same verb. The question is, which behavior do you think it's better? So tell me, I totally think it is better to take risks and try new things, right? So don't say, I think it's better for people to enjoy taking risks. Tell me, I think it's better to take risks or try new things. Or you could say, I totally think that taking risks and trying new things is better, right? One of the two. And then for your reason, maybe try to keep it. So you could say, since, I don't know, you could just say you have more fun or you meet new people, maybe. Those are some common reasons for this type of question. Meeting people, having fun, like maybe developing different skills, learning more as well, getting out of your comfort zone, being stimulated. Those are some ideas you guys could use in this case. So in your case, you had a good example as well during the COVID-19 pandemic. I like the fact that you kind of went for one specific point in time. So during this time, I would say I started learning, or I started to learn, or maybe I took, I started riding a bike. So I think it's a great detail. But it has to be connected to your reason, right? So if you said in your reason, let's say that you say that by taking risks and trying new things, you meet more people. Tell me, for example, during the pandemic, I started riding a bike and I joined a club and I was able to, I don't know, to make a lot of friends, maybe that are now people that I am very close to. And we do this together. I don't know. Or if you're saying that taking risks and trying new things is, let's say, good for your health, then say, I started riding a bike, now I'm feeling better with myself, I feel like I exercise more. So whatever you say has to be connected to the reason you gave. Maybe those are some things I'd say. Don't forget that, and also try to work on your introductions. Okay. Okay, hi Alejandro, we're practicing question 1, by the way. So let's continue with this one. It says, some people think that family members are the most important influence on young adults. Others believe that friends are the most important influence. Which do you agree with? Explain why. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so Erasmo, please, you can start speaking now.
Okay, I am totally agree that family members are the most important influence on young adult, since the education or behavior of the people is uh, influence for these people, for the family, because they are the base of the society. For instance, my father always is like my example. He teach me how to go to the church, how to treat another people, and be kind.
Okay, perfect. Well done. That was, I would say, a really good response in terms of content. And starting from your introduction, it was great. You nailed it. You used the same verb. I totally agree. And then you said what you had in the statement. I totally agree that family members are the most important influence. Perfect introduction. You had a good reason as well. They are the basis of society. And you had a great example as well. For example, in my case, my father is my biggest influence. Maybe one expression you can use instead of example, you could say my father is my role model,
A good role model.
and don't forget to conjugate the verbs, right? So he teaches me or he taught me, whatever it is in the present or past, but conjugated. So he teaches me to be kind or how to treat other people. It was really good. I only that one detail with the grammar. Don't forget your verbs. But it was a great response. Sebastian.
Thank you.
Guys, do you have any questions so far? All right. Moving on to the next question we have. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Use details and examples to explain your answer. All children should be required to learn a second language in school. Now you will have 15 seconds to prepare your response. All right. So Alejandro, maybe, do you want to try now? Are you there, Alejandro? Okay, then maybe Luis, do you want to go?
Eh,
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I strongly agree. The children should be required to learning second language in school, since it's beneficial because when you travel, you have the opportunity to talk to other people. Furthermore, for instance,
Hey, Luis. Well, not bad at all. I think it was great. This time your introduction was really good. You started with the same verb. I agree. I strongly agree. You had the statement. I strongly agree that children should be required to learn a second language. Perfect introduction. You had a great reason as well because it's beneficial when you travel, right? You have the chance to talk to people, to communicate. The only thing, the example I would say is the easiest part. Don't worry about it because you just have to put everything together. Like, first of all, you're saying that you agree that children should be required to learn a second language in school. So say the same, but say it in the first person, right? For instance, when I was in school, when I was 10, let's say, my primary school taught us to speak English as a second language, right? My native language is in Spanish, you could say. And when I was in school, I learned English as a second language. So that is what you are saying in relation to the opinion. And then you connect that with your reason. And you can say, and this was really beneficial for me because now I'm living in Australia, let's say. And right now I'm living in Australia. I have been living here for 3 years. I'm working here. And thanks to the fact that I learned English as a second language in school, I'm now able to communicate with the people around me. I have a better job opportunities here in Australia, whatever, right? But the important thing is that you're saying the same at the end. You're saying what you already said in your intro, you're saying what you said in your reason. You just have to make it a little bit more detailed and a little bit more specific, make up a story there, but it's the same. Okay, so just don't worry, don't freak out when you are giving your example. Try it and you'll get better as you go with thinking of the example. But it was great. Your introduction and your reason were really good. Well done, Luis. Okay, guys, let's do another one. Here we have, some people think that children should be allowed to watch whatever television programs they choose. Others think that parents should exercise control over the television programs that their children watch. Which do you agree with? Explain why. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so Erasmus, please. You can start speaking now.
Okay, I am totally agree that parents should exercise control over the television programs with their children watch. Since because the topics are really different for children or adults. And for example, my daughter, she is 5 years old and she is scared with some program and they had to change the program television. So for that reason, I always stay with she and choose some of the programs that are better for she to learn something beneficial for his life, her life.
Okay, good. You stay and you choose the programs that are better for her, right? Instead of for you. Okay, great, well done. So I don't think I have any comments on this one. It was a good response. You had a great introduction, answered the question directly, repeating the statement. You had a good reason as well. So not maybe what you could say is that not everything that's on TV, not all the content that's on TV is appropriate maybe for children. Why the topics are different, the content should be classified.
Okay.
And good example as well, maybe one comment on your example will be a little bit more specific. So you talked about your daughter, she's scared of some programs. Maybe be a little bit more specific about what programs. Let's say she's scared of programs that show violence or that display violence, right? Or maybe you could even talk about one specific show. You could say she's scared of programs that are
Terror movies can be also.
Yes, only that, but it was good as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Now our next question here says, some people believe it's essential for a person's education to learn to play a musical instrument. Others don't believe music education is important. Which view do you agree with? Explain why. You'll now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So, Luis, please, you can start speaking now.
Okay, I strongly agree with people. People believe it's essential for a person's education to learn to play a musical instrument, since you can play with friends and reunions. And for instance, I recently learned to play a guitar, and it was very beneficial because
Okay, Luis, great, not bad. Now you were able to start with your example. Really good. I think you're making progress. So the only thing in your introduction, don't forget, when you guys have this structure, some people believe this, others don't believe that. In your response, you don't have to talk about these people. No se debe hablar de estas personas. No, what you need to do is talk about what you believe. So you need to say, I strongly agree that it's essential for a person's education to play a musical instrument. Or I strongly disagree that people or that music education is important, right? So you basically you forget about some people believe, others don't believe, others believe that. And what comes next is what matters. Okay, that's the actual statement. So careful there. I strongly agree that it's essential for a person's education to learn to play a musical instrument. Or you summarize. I strongly agree that it's essential to learn to play a music instrument. Or you can summarize it even more. I strongly agree that it's essential to play a musical instrument. Then your reason was great. It is logical and coherent since you can play with friends in meetings. It's a maybe nice way to spend your time. And the only thing, your example was going really great. You talked about one specific instrument, one specific detail. I recently learned to play the guitar and then connected with your reason, right? And whenever I have a birthday party, whenever I have a meeting with my friends or a social event, I am able to play, right, the guitar for them. So only that, you were just missing that part of your example and careful with the introduction. But I think it was a good response, Luis. Thank you. Alejandro, don't worry about it. I just read your text. It's fine. Let us know though, please, whenever, if you can start, when you can start, when you're at home. Okay, so that you can practice as well. So our next question here says, when looking for information for a research project, some students prefer to get their information mainly from the internet. Others prefer to mainly use printed materials such as books and academic journals. Which do you prefer and why? Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so Erasmo, please, you can start speaking now.
I totally prefer looking the information mainly from the internet, since it's in an easier way, it's quick, there are more information on the internet that is really good. You only have to be careful when you find the good sources. For example, when I did my thesis, mainly all the information was from the internet, from research paper, from universities, from journals, very important journals. So that's the reason why I think it's better obtain that information from the internet than printing.
Okay, perfect. Well done, Elias. Really good. Great introduction. I totally prefer you're answering the question directly to search to get information mainly from the internet. Now you have really good ideas, but I would maybe focus on only one or two. You talked about the fact that it's easier to get information from the internet. You said that it's quicker, it's faster, and you also said that you find everything you need, right? So that you have more information. So those were three different ideas. I will focus on only one or two. So for example, you could say, I totally prefer to get information from the internet since it's way quicker or it's way faster. And then your example was perfect, but you need to relate it to the reason you have. So when I was doing my final project or when I was doing my thesis, the information that I used was mainly from the internet. And it took me about, I don't know, 10 minutes to do some research on the internet. Whereas if I had used the printed materials, I would have needed to go to the library, search for the books, and I would have probably spent hours in the library. So I'm just focusing on the idea that it's faster. Or you can focus on another idea, right? That you have more information, maybe. But focus on only one or two.
Okay, Miss, thank you.
Okay, yeah, sure. Now, our next question says, some people who unexpectedly receive a large amount of money spend it on practical things, while others spend it for pleasure only. Which do you think is better and why? Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. Then, Luis, please, you may start now.
I absolutely think it's better to spend in practical things since you can learn a lot with these things. For instance, I paid for courses of English to learn English and to take the TOEFL. And
Okay, great. Well done, Luis. You just needed a brief conclusion, right? To fill that time, you can say, and this is the main reason why I would prefer to spend my money on practical things. And that way it would have been great. So great. No comments. I think you've made a lot of progress. Your introduction was great. I absolutely prefer spend money on practical things. Great introduction. Your reason was good as well. Maybe you could say, since you can learn more, try not to say things too much. So since you can, I don't know, use your money to educate yourself, maybe you could say, right? More vocabulary there. Your example was good. For example, what I would do is try to connect opinion with reason. You had your reason, you talked about how you paid for English courses or for preparation courses for the TOEFL test, which is a practical thing, but I will give some context first in the example. For example, last month I received a large amount of money due to some extra work that I did in my job, and I decided to spend this money buying preparation courses for the TOEFL test, right? Which is a practical thing that is going to be useful for my future, let's say. So give some more context. Your examples always need to have a connection with the opinion. So receiving a large amount of money, spending on practical things, and then the reason, right? Why? Because you learn more. You're learning with this course that you took. Okay, so maybe that's one thing that I would add, but I think it was great. It was well done. Okay, guys. So what do you think so far? Do you have any questions about what we did today in class, about question 1 of the speaking section, or anything at all?
How do you practice to make better the connections? Because sometimes we have some vocabulary, but it's hard to connect well these ideas or these words.
Yes, I know, because sometimes you have the words, but you, as you say, you don't know how to connect them, and it's because you need to learn expressions instead of words, right? So, for example, educating yourself is an expression instead of maybe learning things, right? And the only way that you're gonna get there is by practicing, as you said. As you guys can see, most of the time the topics are similar, right? College life, work life. In this case, this is like simple finance. But you're gonna be able to use these expressions for more than one question. So it's just practicing, but also reading and listening about these topics. So maybe you can read articles about students' life, right? You can maybe search online for a couple of articles that written by students, perhaps. You can read articles about work life, about like how to keep a good or a positive work environment, how to get along well with other people, how to learn more about all of those things. And by reading and by listening to this type of stuff, maybe podcasts, that's how you're gonna expand your vocabulary in terms of those expressions that are really useful. But yes, mostly practicing and looking at the questions and thinking of ideas, you know. To be honest, what I did when I was preparing was I would get the question, right? And then I would search an article about it. So maybe you could say, is it better to spend money on practical things or pleasure? Let's say, right? That's the question. And then you're definitely going to find an article or something that talks about that. Actually, that's the question, right? But let's say this article here, that's from Forbes, right? Forbes magazine. So you have an article and you are gonna find a lot of good expressions here, right? For example, your regular expenses, right? Instead of saying, I prefer to spend money paying the bills, you can say your regular expenses. So you're gonna have a lot of new vocabulary, new expressions. So that's maybe one thing that I would suggest that you do. Experiences become a part of our identity. So you could say that, right? You could use that. And you're probably gonna be able to use the same expression in a different question. So those are some things that you guys can do to develop that vocabulary, to start expanding your your expressions as well. But it's practicing mostly. So yes.
Thank you, Miss.
Okay, guys. Any other question before we go? Then please don't go yet. Today we actually have to complete 2 surveys. I am sending you guys the first. And as soon as you're done with that one, I will send the other one as well. Okay, that was fast. I'm sending the other one too, please. And then you can go. I will see you tomorrow in class. Okay, guys. So thank you so much. See you guys tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Miss.
Bye.